very early Sunday morning. Why they're having us do this race, I have no idea. No one really understands it. Doesn't make see, I can't even speak. Doesn't make much sense. But I'm going to use the ride over there to get pumped. It's more track time. We do get to do the track in reverse, which is really cool, a unique opportunity. And we get to race some go-karts, so no more complaining. Let's go do this. Let's go have some fun. Let's try to win. All right, so just to give some context as to what this race is, if you're a K1 Speed attendee, enthusiast, then you already know the deal. But for those who aren't, basically what's happening is there's a national championship in April where the top 3 finishers from every state will attend and try to be national champion, and then the day after be the world champion. And the thing about K1 Speed is there are multiple, for a lot of states, there are multiple locations in each state. And so to determine the top 3 finishers of each state, you need to gather the top 3 from each location and have them duke it out in a state championship. That's what this is. But there are also states with only one location, Massachusetts, for example. And so it's strange to have the top 3 finishers of the Massachusetts season attend a state championship where only they are the 3 people attending. And so all you really have to do is attend the state championship and you're guaranteed to go to the national championship. It's a bit silly. No one quite understands why the states with one location are having the state championship. Now, as racers, obviously we love to race and we'll take any opportunity we can get. So it's more track time, it's more fun. So that's not an issue, but it is just kind of strange why they're doing this. The cool thing about it, though, is that every location, to level the playing field and equalize things, especially for people who have a home field advantage, home track advantage, is we're going to be running the tracks in reverse. No, not the carts going in reverse, but reverse layout, which is a super interesting proposition. Now, the surprising thing is, or actually unsurprising if you are familiar with K1, is how they're letting us run the track in reverse. These tracks were clearly not meant to handle a reverse layout. There are protrusions in the walls. There are literal gaps that you could slide your cart through and exit the track. It's just not meant to go in that direction. So it's sort of laughable that K1 has allowed this. And for our location, where there's only 3 racers, it's totally one thing. But to have a full-on race here with 10 plus guys out on track, I don't see how they're allowing it. And I'm actually curious to see how the other locations fared where there are more racers. Okay, now that we got that context out of the way, let's get on track and start getting familiar with this track in reverse. This is the first time any of us have run this track in reverse. As you can see here, the grid spots lining up in the other way. And so, obviously, the first few laps are just about figuring things out, finding where the grip is, testing different lines, getting used to the cart, which is always something you gotta do. And quickly I noticed here that there's a lot more runoff in this reverse layout, particularly coming into this first turn here. You can run very wide. Jury is still out on how wide you have to run. And then coming out here, you can go super wide into this last turn and make a giant arc. Again, jury is still out in terms of how wide you need to go there. Light dab on the brakes in this first turn, but we were all sort of experimenting how much the brakes were needed. Typically at this K1 location, and I think at a lot of locations, you don't need the brakes at all. Some people prefer to use them, but you don't need them. But I think we all sort of discovered that in this first turn right up here, just a light, smooth dab of the brakes really settles the cart, and you can carry a lot of speed into that first corner, which became, I think, one of my favorite corners. Very satisfying to get right. And so we're all just sort of humming around, keeping our distance. There's only 3 of us on track, trying to figure it out, get a rhythm, have no reference of what our times are. It's hard to even see the screen because it's behind us. So generally in this session, my cart felt a bit underpowered, but it wasn't much of a concern because I was really just trying to understand the line, and I had no reference point, didn't know how fast sort of I was going or how I stacked up to the other guys. And it's the first cart I've tried in this layout, so you don't really know you know when you don't have a great cart that you can do better. In any case, I finished third out of third with a 21.625, and so that's about a half a second off a good lap in the regular direction. It was 2/10 off the second place qualifier here with a 21.489, and 3/10 off the first place qualifier with a 21.330. So all in all, I set an okay time. The other two guys set more respectable times, but let's see what happens in the next qualifying. By the way, these are 14 lap qualifying sessions, so this is now the second session. Getting the hang of it. Cart's feeling a little bit better. I want to mention something about the safety thing that I called out before. There's one particular area on track, and that is right here at the top of my screen, sort of towards the left. You see the white barrier on the very left of the screen, and then the start of the black barrier. But you notice there's about a 3 to 4 foot gap in between those, just enough for a cart to slide through and either hit the compression springs on the other side of the barrier or go through the exit door. So not only exit the track, but exit the building through the glass. So fun stuff over there. You can imagine if there's 3 or 4 wide coming out of this corner and things get a little hairy, someone's trying to pass on the outside, well, they're going to smash into that barrier or worse, leave the building. Obviously not a giant risk, especially with only 3 people, but I don't know. We just sort of had to laugh that it was allowed to race on the track in reverse anyway. So that's neither here nor there. This is the last couple laps of the second qualifying session. I ended up setting a 21.525, which was exactly 1/10 quicker than my fastest in the prior session. And I think we're all sort of taking a liking to this layout. For me, it was cool to actually need to use the brakes a bit and finesse a bit more of the inputs that way, coming into this first turn back here, right about here, slight dab, and then get the car rotated, turned in. You can run it wide there. That's more realistic when you compare these to other karts. Typically in the regular layout, you're not using the brake, and it's just very far removed from sort of a lot of the other karts that exist out there, and certainly from cars. And so this layout just felt like a bit more realistic in terms of running wide, using the brakes, and using sort of more of the track. So that concludes the second qualifying. Still disappointing for me. I ended up setting a 21.525, and the pole sitter ended up setting a 21.308. And the second place, his time was slower in this one, but it remained at a 21.489. And so we're all, I guess, within a tenth of each other. But with very limited overtaking opportunities, as you'll see, and sort of starting last, third and last, I wasn't in a great spot to finish this race in first place. All right, so coming around to line up on the grid, which, by the way, the grid was completely improvised. They didn't have actual grid spots. They just sort of felt it out, which was fine. Just 3 people here. They didn't really get it wrong. I think the grid spots worked out just fine. So off we go. I got a pretty poor start coming into this first turn. Understeer and then a snap of oversteer, so already created a little bit of gap between the guys in front of me. I quickly realized that this kart is not quite steering to my liking, but that's an old excuse, right? Well, you'll see in a bit that I have more excuses related to the kart. But I fell quite a bit behind. You can see the 2 guys up there ahead of me. So, okay, no worries. You see me throw my hand up there. So what's happening on the first lap and for most of the consecutive laps is the kart pretty much dies in that sequence. It loses power. At most, it has 50% power. So there's a flat spot. I'll show you where. Right here to about here. So it's a significant distance where the power of the kart simply disappears. It's almost as if one of the guys just turns down the speed from the remote control. Very upsetting. It's not so bad where I'm gonna say, hey, give me a new kart and stop the race, but it's bad enough. See, I'm sort of signaling to the kart, to the guys, to see if maybe they'll intervene and do something. Again, I'm not stopping my race, but I'm letting them know that, guys, my cart's just not working. It's underpowered. But again, excuses, right? So my hope at this point, as I'm cruising along, is to one, try to not let the gap increase, but also hope that uh, the two front runners slow each other down. So they are competitive enough to take risky passes, and so I understand or I anticipate that that's going to happen. And so I'm like, okay, let me just keep up. They're going to be fighting, battling, slowing each other down. So let me try to catch up. Unfortunately, with this cart, wasn't doing me any good. But you'll see over time, I sort of start to close the gap. Coming around this double apex, I really struggled with this left-hander right here. It was very sort of just difficult. And I'm used to that corner making a right-hander, and it just didn't translate in my brain. So you'll see very shortly that second place guy, Harrison's going to make a move on Luke in first place. Right here. So there, what I anticipated happened, slowed them down. Now I've finally caught up. There's been a few laps where my cart has actually been behaving, but it's pretty off and on. And so now I'm right nose to tail. And it's all about finding that opportunity to overtake. I make a move right here. I try to go for it, but Harrison's got the inside there. I tried for the switchback under, but didn't quite work. It's just very difficult to make classic overtaking maneuvers at this track. It's so tight. It's so hard to gain momentum. And so you really bank on someone making a mistake or sort of pushing your way through using some force. But the common sort of getting a better exit, doing a switchback overtake, or going around the outside, all sort of the overtake maneuvers that you would see in car racing and even in more classic kart racing are very, very difficult here, if not impossible. A common place I like to overtake is on the inside, so kind of coming right here and then popping the inside right there. But Harrison was doing a great job defending. Obviously, he knew that I was behind him, so, you know, it was hard to execute that maneuver. But I guess I will say that that is one of the sort of more approachable or doable overtake maneuvers at this track. Again, coming around a corner and then surprise him on the inside, sort of tuck in right there. But obviously the door was closed here for me, so I couldn't execute that. And here's the kicker. Last lap, my cart dies at about 60% power the whole lap. So just sort of the same power I had in that dead spot, now it's remaining there the whole time. I'm smacking the cart. I'm upset. I feel like I've complained a lot. I'm sorry, guys. This was super fun, but my cart just died in the last lap. Was I going to catch them? Probably not. But just super frustrating. Man, I really love this stuff. I love racing. I'm super passionate. I'm competitive. But when the equipment just fails and you're paying for it and it just gets under my skin. But congrats to Luke, Harrison. They did awesome, quite frankly, a lot better than I did. So good job to them. And we're all about to book our flights for California. We're We're heading to the national championship, so as sort of frustrating as this was, it was also super cool to run in reverse, and it was just for fun. We all got trophies. We're heading to California soon to race outside on the big boy track, and can't wait to see you there. I'm going to make a video on that for sure. What did you guys think about the race? For those of you who did your own reverse layout race at other K1 locations, what was it like? I want to hear your thoughts. Comment below. Were there any safety concerns? How did you do? Most importantly, I'll see you guys in California.